So today we talked about Amos 8 and specifically about a famine of hearing the word of the Lord, not because God isn't speaking, but because even as he is speaking, his people, despite the fact that they've ordered their life around hearing him, can't hear him. And so we talked about some of the potential causes of that, but the main one we addressed was the fact that in Amos's context, their system of obedience had overgrown their love for God. So while they had a good relationship with their system, with their giving and showing up, and they're doing the right things and talking to the right people and giving the right amount, they didn't become right. Because even as they did those things, they walked themselves into moderate obedience. So what we talked about today really is that sometimes the enemy of obedience isn't wild, loose disobedience. Sometimes it's moderately obeying and convincing yourself that's enough. And so we really talked about how in Amos's context, and maybe in ours too, the solution was to draw near to people that God is near to, that we've overlooked. The poor, those on the margins of society, those people that in your own life you've convinced yourself that you can be successful without. And so at the end, we asked ourselves 4 questions. The first is, what act of obedience are you talking yourself out of? Maybe this is something that God's talked to you about for a while, and every time you're sort of about to jump and obey, you sort of say, you know what, I already go to church and I tithe and I have a system, and that's enough. The second question is, what habits insulate you from people that you overlook? Maybe this is the way you spend. Maybe it's the places you shop. Maybe it's the way you've altered your commute so you stay out of neighborhoods where people are that you just don't want to associate with. And so the call really is in this to identify what are those things that insulate you from people that you tend to overlook, that God may speak to you in a way he won't anywhere else. The third question is, how will you this week and this month and this year draw close to the people that you overlook? The odds are, if your habits were already in place to do this, you'd already be near to those people. Maybe you are, but you just sort of walk by them and pass by them without engaging. So this week, identify, how is it that I can draw close to those people that currently I'm overlooking? And then the fourth question is, who is going to help you? This isn't somebody who's going to be responsible for your success. You are responsible for sort of leaning into what God's calling you to do. But it may be somebody who either has an in with a population that you tend to overlook and can give you some skills if you ask them to meet or have coffee. Or it may be someone who can who as you check in with them, can be honest with you and hold your feet to the fire about that action of obedience. Again, the point of this isn't for them to motivate you to obey and make sure by following up every week that you're doing it. The point is, you have somebody who can give you a little skill and help and touch in a way that maybe you won't yourself. So as we go throughout this week, the hope is that we'll lean not into moderate obedience, but that we'll identify the call of God on our lives, listen to his voice even when it's inconvenient, even when he's saying something that's outside of our system. And instead of going back and saying, you know what, I think I'm probably already doing enough, saying, I will structure my life to respond yes to the invitation of God, to be on the people's side in my community whose side God is on.